Warm greetings from the high 10. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Thank you for joining me. This is the last live for the evening. Nancy Grace has a podcast, Crime Stories, and she had guests on recently, and they gave their theories, assertions, assumptions, speculations pertaining to the Idaho 4 slayings. You will hear different versions of what these people think happened, and I will give you my rundown of what they have said. I don't really have a theory because, as I said, it's too many moving parts to assume anything at this point. Because one, you have too many victims. You have too many people living by the victims. They were also college students. They also were two other roommates that lived in the house that did not get murdered or assaulted. So it's too many moving parts. But I'm going to play this commentary. I'm going to break down my commentary on what they said and give you what I would call my debunking of those said theories. But at the moment, 2 weeks into this case, I do not have a theory of who did it or why. Because as I said, it has too many moving parts for me to even speculate at this point. If they had more to give, possibly I could. But then we also know that even if they start talking about certain people a little too much, it may not even be that person. So let's get started. Thank you so much for joining me.
Beautiful young college students massacred, slaughtered, some sleeping in their beds. I'm talking about the slaughter of University of Idaho students. The case unsolved. The murder weapon not found. The killer on the loose. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us here at Fox Station and Sirius XM 111. First of all, take a listen to our friends at The Today Show.
The most pressing facts are still a mystery. No murder weapon, no motive, not even a suspect description. Devastating for the families of Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Maddie Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez. Praying for justice in their grief.
Turn yourself in. You owe it to these mothers of these children, these fathers, these families. You're wrong. Turn yourself in.
And so far, the police say that they've received about 500 tips, and they're asking for even more tips from the public, from anybody that knows where these victims were the night before they were killed. But right now, the biggest lead seems to be that large fixed-blade weapon, possibly a combat knife.
Let me introduce to you an all-star panel to make sense of what we know right now. But first, I want to go to Audrey Conklin, investigative reporter with Fox News Digital. Audrey, thank you for being with us. This, of course, went down on the edges of the University of Idaho along Greek Row at off-campus housing. What do we know about the area?
We know that everything is very close by all of the places where each of the 4 student victims were the night before the murders and the early morning when it occurred are all very close together. You could even walk to each of the places. I don't think they did because at least 2 of them were driven home by a private party, but they're all very close together.
You know, that's significant. That puts things in an entirely different light. Now, Joseph got Morgan with me, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University, and author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon, star of a hit series, Body Bags with Joe Scott Morgan. If most people walk to where they're going, Joe Scott, that tells me the killer probably walked there too.
Yeah, and when you look at this place, Nancy, it's got very specific points of access. There's a big bank of windows in the back of this house on essentially the second level. It's kind of built into the side of a hill.
Looks like a split level.
It does, and you can assess the place from a long ways away, but still have cover. I think that's significant, and you could only do that on foot.
That's interesting that I just wonder sometimes, Joe Scott, if cops do the same thing I did as a prosecutor, like we're doing right now, sitting around and discussing and talking about possibilities. Again, when you look at this house, I'm looking at it right now, it looks like a split level. There is, what would you say, huge timbers holding up what appears to be a wraparound patio or a little porch that goes around the back, which would be very easy to get on. When you look at it, I'm looking at the sliding glass doors. The father of one of the victims stated that, and it's very apparent that there are 2 points of entry. One is the front door, which is only entered with a code. Got to know the code to get in. A code like you would see on a rental unit. You know what I mean, Joe Scott, where you punch in 1, 2, 3, 4, and the door will open. The other point of access would be that sliding glass door, which for time immemorial has been a sweet spot for burglars. They're really easy to get into, and a lot of people leave them unlocked because they're a pain in the rear end to lock.
Yeah, they are. And sometimes, particularly college kids, you'll forget to do stuff like that. But can I draw your attention back to that door that has the keypad?
Hello, everybody.
Folks can find a static picture that standalone static photo. And if you look to the left, there's a road, a tiny road that runs up the hill. Now, yesterday they had the police out there taking a look at tire tracks or burn marks essentially on the road. Do you know there's a tree line right there? You can park adjacent to that and walk through the tree line and get access to that top level. So provide cover to get to that second floor that you're talking about that kind of has the balcony, the decking area. It's kind of built into the ground. It's real interesting the way the whole thing is constructed.
You said burn marks. What do you mean by that?
Well, it looks like you can kind of see the skid marks in the road, like somebody has burned rubber in that area.
It's scratched off.
Yeah, they have. And I really wonder if they went out there and took rubber samples as well off of those tracks that were left behind.
But here's the problem. There is absolutely no control of the crime scene. When they got the call, everybody was looking around, and Joe, you would know this. It's really hard to keep people, particularly people of rank, from going up and looking and seeing the bodies and those sorts of things. And so the crime scene has been contaminated at the beginning of this case.
Guys, you're hearing Dale Carson, a high-profile lawyer, joining us out of Jacksonville. And not just lawyer, this is why he's critical today. He's former FBI, former police officer, and author. You can find him at dalecarsonlaw.com. Audrey, Joe Scott, Dale Carson, and also with us, someone we lean on a lot, Dr. Jory Crossan, psychologist, joining us, faculty, St. Leo University, research consultant, and author of Operation SOS. Guys, please jump in whenever you have a thought like Dale just did and like Joe Scott brought up, those rubber marks where somebody scratched off near the home. Is it connected? Don't know. Must investigate. What are they doing right now, and what have we learned? I want you to take a listen to the county coroner, Kathy Mabbitt.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound. Yes.
Can you describe what that one might have been?
Fatal ones were to the chest area or the upper body area.
Were there, and I only ask this because it sometimes determines what kind of a crime this was, a crime of passion, a random crime, a fight, a struggle. Was there, were any of them slashed? Were any of their necks cut? Or were these all puncture wounds?
Well, it was a pretty large knife, so it's really hard to call them puncture wounds. And they were definitely stabbings. And it has to be somebody that's pretty angry in order to stab 4 people to death.
Here, our friends over at News Nation. Joe Scott Morgan, I got a problem. Okay, I got a lot of problems, but one of them is that Kathy Mabbitt, who I'm sure is a fine person, is a registered nurse. Wait for it, who has a degree, a BS in political science, and a law degree from the University of Idaho that she got in I believe 2006, could have been 2001. Did you hear me?
I did.
A registered nurse with a law degree and a degree in political science. All those things, each of themselves, are spectacular feats. Okay? Really hard to do all that. But we need a trained medical examiner.
Oh, wow.
To look at.
I did not know that. Okay. I want to make sure I was hearing this properly. So you mean to tell me we have someone that's not a medical examiner that has spoken on behalf of the victims and their wounds? This is not good. They also questioned if the scene was compromised. People were everywhere. Something about burn marks in the back of the house. I don't know if he means drive marks. What does he mean? This is not good, because this is what happens in small towns. If there are not a lot of homicides, which in a lot of small towns there aren't, they don't have seasoned detectives. So does this department have seasoned detectives? Because what doesn't look good is this assertion that people were all over the place running around. So that means if you're running around on the outside, you're running around on the inside. What's the scene outside, inside compromise? Number one. Number two, where is the medical examiner, coroner, someone that can put time of death, how long the people were deceased, their wounds? This is not good. I thought maybe I was dozing off there for a minute, but I always know that Nancy has a reason for the season. Because she went into that very subtle to say, oh, she's got great accolades. And I thought it was going to stop there, because I did listen to some of this yesterday. But she wanted to let it know, yeah, she's got some degrees, but they ain't in the right place. Amen. So how are we going to take this to the next level if we don't even have somebody that measures the wounds? That's what the medical examiner does. He or she, oh man, this is crazy. They measure the wounds. They give you an idea of what type of weapon is used from the measurements, because they should be seasoned. They go to school to know the human body, what makes it tick, manner of death, can't give manner of death, any type of physical ailment such as heart attack, stroke, aneurysm, what they ate, didn't eat. Oh, wow. This is bad. Okay, let's continue. I'm flabbergasted right now. So let's go here. Was the same knife used for all of the people, or did the perpetrator switch them out to more than one perpetrator? I'm going to interject in between as to cut my time down. This is bad, 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 bad. So now we got to ask ourselves, has the body been given over to the family members? Because if so, this ain't good. Because you need to have certain things about the body recorded, and only a medical examiner can do that. Oh, Lord have mercy, it's just crazy. All right, let's try to finish this up.
Wounds, and also not to disseminate information until it has been determined by a medical doctor, and possibly not even then do I have to say Delphi. Look, I want to know the information just like everybody else, but this is not the time to be releasing information about the wounds of the victims. Because if the killer is watching TV, what's he going to do right now? He's going to take that fixed blade knife and get rid of it. He's going to clean it and get rid of it, because so much information is being leaked, and information critical to the case.
And there's no central point of control with it. This is what really struck me about her interview, and she'd given one prior to the one that we just listened to. is that she made a statement before the police ever made a statement. I mean, an open statement where they gave an interview.
No offense, but shut your pie hole, lady. Go ahead.
No, yeah, and so that's a bit different. And I think that a lot of this goes, and I'm not disparaging the jurisdiction up there. I think a lot of this goes to a lack of experience that
I will agree.
might have with dealing with mass fatalities like this, and something, people don't think this can happen in your town, and it does. It truly does, evidenced here. And everything demonstrates that you have to be on the same sheet of music. You have to have a point of control for all information that's coming in.
It's called a command center.
You're right, Dale Carson.
One of the noticeable things is when you do crime scenes like this, you've got to cover everything to prevent the environment from despoiling it. I haven't seen one covered area, particularly in the back of the property, where it's likely this individual stood and surveilled the house for perhaps a protracted period of time. And that's why the assaults were on the upper floors.
Is that true? The perpetrator was in the back of the house and made his or her way into the house. So which floor did he enter into, the second or the third? Did he climb up the pillar and voila, the balcony door was open on the second floor? Climbed up to the third floor, whichsoever. See, we don't know. If one of the girls left one of the windows open, doors open. What is the point of entry? What was the point of exit? Did he walk to the scene? 1 target, 2 target, 3 target, 4 targets. When you say the person went through the back or lied in wait, that means they would have to know somebody was not going to be at home. Or is the person bold enough to just break on in or try to maneuver in, however, knowing that there are people there? And one could say, well, the perpetrator didn't care because he, she, they killed the people there. So was someone stalking in the back of the property? But as I said, if you're in the back, how are you going to see if someone's coming or going? Naturally, they're going to use the front door. So if you're in the back, you can't see the front. So am I to believe this person, if they were stalking in the back, they walked around the house to look to see whose car was outside, how many cars were outside? These people had lots of company, allegedly. So that would still be risque to walk around the property looking, then go in the back and stand. You still don't have any idea who's coming. You'd only have your ear to listen to cars coming up the driveway. Still risque, in my opinion. Very risky. Oh, mercy. What a mess.
On the upper floor.
Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. The assaults were on 2 floors. We know that there were 2 bedrooms on each floor. We know that 2 of the victims were on the second floor, 2 of the victims were on the third floor, and the other 2 roommates who survived were on the first floor, which could be considered, look at it, just got an above ground basement. It's a split level house. You've got the entry point there on the bottom with the key code. Then the back kind of is built into the side of a little hill. Yeah. You got to look at this place to get it. So at first I thought, wow, the 2 surviving roommates are on the bottom floor, so the perp had to walk up 3 floors. He could have very well entered through that sliding glass door, which would have put him at an upper level. Yes, no, Joe Scott?
Yes, you're absolutely right.
I think he came in through the sliding glass door. The more I'm reasoning it through, look at the house. Guarantee you he came through that sliding glass door. Although a lot of people seemingly had the code to that front door. Guys, take a look.
If he went through the sliding door, second or third floor, the intent had to be murder. Because as I said, you cannot see from around back who is coming in and out of the property unless you are listening to cars drive in and then you're trying to listen at voices. So what's the perpetrator lying in wait? What's the perpetrator homeless living back there? I think at some point somebody would have found out, because naturally girls will look out their windows, maybe drink coffee or drink on a patio. you would possibly see somebody lurking around at some point if they were hanging out for days on end. But then some people don't ever look out the window, never sit outside, which to me would defeat the purpose of having a balcony, but everybody's different. Drifter in the back, stalker in the back, neighbor in the back, friend in the back, delivery person, what we talking? Our suspects, friends, drifter, roommates, friends of the roommates, one or two assailants or more. Maintenance worker, somebody that worked on the house, doesn't work for the house, painting for the house. Is it the owner of the house? Somebody's affiliated with the owner. One of their children has an access to the house, keep codes to the house. Stalker, ex-boyfriend, ex-friend, relative. Did they go on foot or did they drive? You hear in this commentary, they don't believe the girls. Nancy says she don't believe the girls walked anywhere, even though this was in walking distance, this house to the places that allegedly they went to, because they Ubered home or took a taxi service home. So did the girls walk to these locations and then took ride services back? That means the stalker couldn't have been somebody wandering around on foot at the locations where they were, because how's he going to follow them if they jumped into a taxi and he's on foot? Stay woke. Motive. Did he clean up there? Evidence left behind. Is this a university staff person? One or two assailants. What are we talking about? Let's presume. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $DeGanty, 129, Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during this live. This is Nancy Grace.
Door. Guys, take a listen now to our Cut 40, our friends at KREM. New details emerging.
New details are emerging in the stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students. Tonight, the Latah County coroner says the 4 students were likely asleep. Some had defensive wounds, and each victim was stabbed multiple times. Authorities found no sign of sexual assault. Moscow police say at this point in the investigation, they do not believe the 2 surviving roommates or the man seen standing near a local food truck were involved in the murders. Police also...
Let's go right there. Allegedly, the people were asleep. How do you know that the victims were asleep? Who's to say somebody wasn't up in the kitchen, getting something to drink, in the bathroom, on the phone, looking at social media, watching a movie, earphones on? People have been ruled out already. The person at the food truck, male. Make it make sense. How do you know the girls were all asleep? The first 2 ladies got in together. Xana and her boyfriend got in at a different time, allegedly. Is this a robbery gone bad? Since there was no sexual assault, as you heard here, was somebody already in the house robbing the place and they felt trapped, panicked, spooked, killed everybody? Are there any valuables missing from the house? Nobody talks about that, because there are robbers who will kill. So is this a robbery gone bad? Somehow they staked out the house, had knowledge of the house, know the people, don't know the people, random. What are we saying? A random stranger broke in, took away in, rather, because they did say there was no break-in. So could this be somebody who was looking for money on meth, heroin? Somebody who's been in a house, know what the girls got in there, took a chance. They're all gone. Okay, let's make my move. More than one person, make our move. But now we're stuck because they're coming in 20, 30 minutes apart, can't get out. What are we saying? Once again, random stranger, homeless person hanging in the woods. That's what you're going to hear in this commentary. No weapon found. One knife or more knife. Assailants would have more than one knife. Were any beaten by hand or any other type of weapon, such as a crowbar? What are we saying? So many avenues. My notebook is full right now from all the possibilities.
were involved in the murders. Police also addressed rumors swirling online claiming the victims were gagged and tied, saying those are not accurate, and the identity of the 911 caller has not been released.
Okay, we do know Audrey Conklin joining us, investigative reporter with Fox News Digital. Audrey, we are learning more about the person that called 911. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Audrey, but I think that one of the roommates that survived, a surviving roommate, tried to wake up one of the victims. The victim wouldn't wake up. The surviving roommate calls a friend, says, hey, I think she's passed out. He or she is passed out. They came over. They realized she's not passed out. She's dead. They call 911. Police get there, and they find the other three victims.
Make this make sense. You're in a house with people that you already live with. Why are you not contacting them to say, hey, what's wrong with victim number one, let's say? The two remaining roommates are trying to wake up one of the victims. Yet you hear no mention of blood. I'm gonna wear this out because something's off. And I'm not implying that any of these people orchestrated the deaths of the roommates, hired someone, but something is off because you can't make it make sense that you're in the house with these people. You live there and you would go call an outsider because one of the women would not wake up. It doesn't make any sense. My understanding, the scene was bloody. It was a sloppy job. That almost makes you think it was not planned. So what the hell happened in that house? And why is one of the roommates trying to wake up this person? Are you trying to wake up someone that was in the floor of a living space, hallway, bathroom, bathtub, bed? What? Banging on the door, they won't answer? What? Then why would you go talk to the other girls? Because that's when you would have discovered the other ones were dead. Bingo card. Stay woke. Why would I go call outside people because I can't wake up a dead person that I didn't know was dead, but yet somebody says the scene was gory, bloody, sloppy. Make it make sense. That's the point. Blood was never mentioned. Originally, when they brought us information, somebody was trying to wake up somebody. You know damn well there was blood everywhere in that house. You just killed 4 people. There has to be blood going from second to third, third to second, whichever floor they came in. For all we know, they came in on the first floor. Maybe the girls didn't lock the windows. Stay woke. Because you don't know how he, she, they got in. And what will be the clincher? Please listen to me carefully. They invited the killer in. The plot thickens. Hell yeah. I'm in here now. I didn't need no break-in, crowbar, climb up the balcony, level 2, level 3. I was invited in. And I had alternative plans when I got there. You see, these are college children, so they're not on a schedule. So they can be up all times of day and night, entertaining, talking to people, hooking up, ordering food, pizza, want to talk late night drink. Grown people do it. So you ain't surprised that 20-year-olds do it. They're not on a schedule. Did they invite the perpetrators in? Who's to say they didn't use a knife at the house? Bingo card. You don't know. You don't know. You don't even know how many people we're talking about. And many don't want to face that it could be a woman because a man was killed. Well, who's to say somebody didn't have a taser? And I was listening to a certain YouTuber on his channel saying that Ethan was found on the floor. I do not know where he got that information from, if that is accurate, but that's what I'm saying. Do we even know where everybody was when they were murdered? Sitting up in a chair, lazy boy, on the sofa, in a bed? We have no idea.
One, police get there and they find the other 3 victims. That's my understanding. What do you know, Audrey?
I haven't heard about one of the roommates trying to wake up one of the victims, but what I can see happening, and this is speculative, but maybe the roommates who we now know lived on the first floor of the house saw or heard something that frightened them, that morning. Maybe without seeing the victims themselves. Maybe they saw blood. Maybe they saw or heard something that was, not unusual in that household. So they called friends over to check out the situation. Those friends may have seen a victim in their bed not moving, which I think would make the unconscious person report make sense.
This theory makes no logical sense to me. Why would I go outside of the house to call others when I have other roommates living in the house? Is it possible that they knew that those roommates were dead? Ooh. You weren't expecting that, no, did you? Could it be the 2 survivors, which I don't really like using that word because I don't know their role, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I don't. Why are we calling other people? You cannot deny this fact. You can word it 1,000 different ways. It makes no sense. This woman here is saying, oh, somebody could have got shot, saw blood. Well, then you should have called the police if you saw blood. If you saw blood in the AM, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, police should have been there already to discover everybody dead. Bingo card. If you saw blood at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., ting, 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 you should have called the police. What the fuck are you calling somebody else for? Why are you calling outsiders when you have other people living in the house with you? And you want me to believe you did not see the girl with blood. Even if she was lying face down, the killer has walked from room to room. And you don't know what he took. Ding, ding, ding. Souvenirs. Oh, y'all not ready for that. You don't know if he took souvenirs. Mementos, underwear, purses. Were the victims robbed? Bingo card. They don't hear me. Because you don't know the motive. And even with a motive, a person could still get robbed. Cash, jewelry, iPads, cell phones. Are any of the victims missing cell phones, iPads, jewelry, debit cards, Cash App cards, Venmo cards, mementos? Y'all better stay woke. Perpetrator 1, perpetrator 2, perpetrator 3. White, black, Hispanic, tall, short, fat, virile, can climb up a railing. Old, young, middle age. Who's our perpetrator? Random, knows the victims, or just somebody out wanting to play some funny games and have seen the girls coming and going and just decided on this day, I want to play funny games with these young ladies. Who's the perpetrator? What's the motive? Did they rob the young ladies? Is there something missing of significance from the ladies? Was a calling card left behind? Ooh, you weren't ready for that either. Because you see, the police said there's evidence that led us to believe that it was targeted. So who's to say the perpetrator didn't leave a nice little note behind, such as something nasty scribbled on the wall, scribble something on the victim, carve something in the victim. Ooh, y'all weren't ready for that. That's why they can't tell you anything. Has the perpetrator been back to the scene? Oh, we're really going to get nasty now. Have you been back, sir, ma'am? Have you been standing on the sidelines watching, pretending to be a concerned neighbor? Oh, my. Because most perpetrators go back, walk around, blend in. Thank you for joining me, everybody.
Report makes sense. And they called police from one of the roommates' phones.
That's right, because one of the surviving roommates' cell phone was used to call 911, but apparently it was not her surviving roommate. Your construction of the fact.
Ooh, wait a minute. Did y'all hear that? So 2 roommates survived, but you're using a dead person's phone. Come on with it, Queen. Why are you using someone else's phone? You should know it's a crime scene if you think they are deceased. So why am I using your phone? Why don't I go use my own phone? And I am trying my best not to accuse these survivors, if that's the appropriate word to use, but there's something wrong here. Let's replay that. Always listen to the details, everybody. Your truth is at the beginning, not the middle, not the end. Let's go back a little bit.
So they called friends over to check out the situation. Those friends may have seen a victim in their bed not moving, which I think would make the unconscious person report make sense. And they called police from one of the roommates' phones.
That's right, because one of the surviving roommates' cell phone was used to call 911, but apparently it was not her surviving roommate. Your construction of the facts makes perfect sense.
I'm kind of confused there. I don't understand that.
Listen to our friend Kyle Simchuk.
Detectives say they've received nearly 500 tips, which are being processed, investigated, and cleared. 38 people who may have information about the murders have.
Let me go back. So first it says survivor's phone was used. I don't know if I'm confused. I have to go back on this because something's bothering me.
The where
Person they called.
Seeing the victims themselves. Maybe they saw blood. Maybe they saw or heard something that was, not unusual in that household. So they called friends over to check out the situation. Those friends may have seen a victim in their bed not moving, which I think would make the unconscious person report make sense. And they called police from one of the roommates' phones.
That's right, because one of the surviving roommates' cell phone was used to call 911, but apparently it was not her surviving roommate. Your construction of the facts.
Okay, so she just said it. One of the surviving roommates used the phone, but then she says, no, it wasn't. So which is it? Was it a dead person's phone or it was the surviving roommate's phone? Because here, Nancy backtracks. That's why I wanted to keep playing it so we can get an understanding of whose phone was used.
Makes perfect sense. The surviving roommate tried to wake up one of the victims. The victim wouldn't wake up. The surviving roommate calls a friend and says, hey, I think she's passed out. He or she is passed out. They came over. They realized she's not passed out. She's dead. They call 911. Police get there and they find the other 3 victims. That's my understanding. What do you know, Audrey?
I haven't heard about one of the roommates trying to wake up one of the victims, but what I can see happen.
Okay, so here you have this lady coming in saying, I haven't heard that one of the roommates tried to wake up the other roommates. Then what is the point of this conversation? Because I'm confused. Exactly, Mildred. You would wake them. You would shake them. So that's why we try to get an understanding. Were you trying to yell through a door? They wouldn't wake up. Then wouldn't you just walk off if it was a matter of they didn't open the door? So we're going to assume the door was open, ajar, or if it was closed, it wasn't locked. So now this lady is saying, I haven't heard the version you heard, Nancy, that somebody was trying to wake up the dead person. So now you have to decide what is the truth. Did they realize the girl was dead or not? Did one of you realize she was dead? Because we have to ask ourselves, what is the obvious? What made you want to go in the room? Bingo card. So what is it that you were needing to talk to this person about? Something is still off here. Why did you need to go in the room? You mean to tell me you didn't see any blood in the room? So you want me to believe that what? Her room was pitch dark. Was the victim lying face up or face down? Was the room pitch black to where you could not see blood on the floor? Is there carpet on the floor? See, these are all the questions nobody's asking. Dark room, carpet on the floor, dark carpet, tile floor, wooden floor, laminate flooring, covers over the victim, victim on top of the covers, victim on the floor, victim sideways laying on their side, face down or face up. Make it make sense. Why can't you see anything such as blood? The perpetrator has to open the door. Come on, you guys. The perpetrator has to be able to open the door, because wouldn't I shut it? I want to be alone with my victim. I want to make sure nobody comes up from behind me, hits me in the head, club me in the head, shoot me, beat me. So did the perpetrator shut the door when he, she, they were beating up this victim here? You have to ask all the questions to make it make sense about these two going in this room of this person or wherever they were, wherever they found her, because I don't even know where they found her. Yes, blood could be everywhere. It was said it was gory. It was said it was sloppy. So you want me to believe wherever they found this person, you didn't see anything going and coming from the victim? Come on now. And this lady speaking to Nancy Grace says, oh, I didn't hear nothing about somebody waking her up. Well, then make it make sense why the hell they're trying to wake her up then. So now we have to wonder if she was lying in the floor somewhere and you thought, well, what is she doing down here? Strange story here. Very strange.
Audrey.
I haven't heard about one of the roommates trying to wake up one of the victims, but what I can see happening, and this is speculative, but maybe the roommates who we now know lived on the first floor of the house saw or heard something that frightened them, that morning, maybe without seeing the victims themselves. Maybe they saw blood, maybe they saw or heard something that was, not unusual in that household. So they called friends over to check out the situation. Those friends may have seen a victim in their bed not moving, which I think would make the unconscious person report make sense. And they called police from one of the roommates' phones.
That's right, because one of the surviving roommates' cell phone was used to call 911, but apparently it was not her surviving roommate. Your construction.
Okay, she just said it. Apparently it was not the surviving roommate. She just said it wasn't. Oh, Lord.
The facts makes perfect sense, Audrey. Guys, take a listen to our friend Kyle Simchuk.
Detectives say they've received nearly 500 tips, which are being processed, investigated, and cleared. 38 people who may have information about the murders have been interviewed. The whereabouts of the killer and the knife used are still unknown. Detectives seized the contents of 3 dumpsters on King Road to look for evidence. Police have also gone to local businesses to see if anyone recently purchased a fixed blade knife. Anyone who saw something suspicious, has video surveillance, or can provide relevant information about the murders is asked to call the Moscow Police Department.
Jessica Morgan joining me, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University. A fixed blade knife, as opposed to, for instance, a switchblade, it's not fixed, immovable in the hilt, or a penknife that folds out. A fixed blade knife is certainly going to be the weapon because it's more sturdy. And we know that these are very deep stab wounds. Explain.
Yeah, they're very robust, I would imagine, in their appearance. That means that the width of the knife, and it had been mentioned earlier, they used the term puncture wound. It's not a puncture wound. This is going to be a big open wound where the knife is introduced into the body specifically. And I think one of the reasons they're drawing this conclusion, remember they keep saying military style, I think that perhaps what happened, there's a hilt guard. That's that little bar that goes across the handle that separates the blade from the handle.
Horizontally across the knife.
Yeah, and so I think, and most military style knives have those, we can see actually a bruise, called a hilt bruise, lots of times when this is driven into the body. That might be where they're drawing that conclusion from. They've used the term K-bar, which is generally associated with the Marine Corps. It's a combat knife. I don't know that for a fact, but that name has been thrown around. Our Marines have used that since World War II.
I've heard that too. To Dr. Jory Crossan joining us, psychologist and faculty, St. Leo University, also author. Dr. Jory, question. Think about it. This is between 3 and 4 in the morning, and apparently, Jackie, I read that one of the victims was making calls up until 2:58. 2:58. Did you see that? Did you see that, Audrey? That one of the victims is on the phone at 2:58?
Yes. Police believe that she was on the phone right before the murders are estimated to have happened.
Yeah. And how was she asleep 2 minutes later? Very curious timing, but that's got to have been established by phone records or someone that spoke and could look at their phone and go, yeah, it was 2:58. Also, we know that one of the girls continually called an ex-boyfriend, Jack. They shared custody of a dog, I guess is one way to put it, and were maybe even reconciling. That said, Jack has been ruled out by the family. There was a flurry of phone calls to the friend Jack right before the murders. So the last call's at 2:58, and they're placing the murders between 3 and 4 a.m. 2 minutes later, yet they say the victims were in bed and likely asleep. To Dr. Jory Crossan joining us, the thinking of this perp to go from floor to floor. If the murders were targeted, why kill 4? Wouldn't it likely be one of the victims was targeted?
Yes, it could be, but then the others just become collateral, like witnesses. But also, with a personality, a frenzy attack, once they start the killing, then it just, the deviance just produces that behavior to kill again. I'd be real interested in knowing the sequence of who was killed first or how the bodies were found. And, I think you could pretty well determine if we knew that, like who was killed, because Ethan, the boy, the male, seems like he would be one of the first to be eliminated.
Except that he was likely in the same bedroom with a female, his girlfriend, Xana. Yeah. So let's think this through.
So the fact that a male was in the house with women, many have possibly will deduct that it was a man that did the killing, because most of you can't wrap your head around a woman killing a man. But it depends on the circumstances if the person has been subdued while asleep, such as using a stun gun or the sorts. So is the perpetrator a man or a woman, or, as I said, more than one perpetrator? As this psychologist is speaking, he makes great points. Who was the first person to be murdered? Second floor, or was it the third floor? And then they worked their way down to the second. Which is it? Because we don't even know how the perpetrator got in. Window or one of the balconies. Were they let in by one of the girls? Somebody came over late night. Perpetrator already in the house. You still have to ask yourself how a person got in and undetected. You don't know how the house is made in the layout. It would be risky still stalking and trying to make your way in, because let's say the blinds are open on the doors and I'm standing up here, climbed over a balcony. How do I know someone's not sitting right there where the door is? How do I know somebody's mom or dad isn't visiting? So you don't know. So it's risque no matter when you went in there, because you have to know for sure that everybody is gone before making your way into this house. So I guess that's why they're assuming that the victims were asleep and it was in the wee hour. Very, very strange story.
Let's think this through. Dylan Carson, Joe Scott Morgan, jump in. We're talking about this scenario, and it's really impossible to determine, based specifically on the bodies, which murder was first.
Yes.
But other information could tell us that.
But think about it. The lights are out. You enter a house. You're going to kill somebody. You have a specific target in mind. You go into one room. It's not the target, but you kill them anyway.
Okay.
And you work your way progressively, and you can determine when you find the target's knifing is going to be different. And one of the things that you mentioned that's really peculiar to me is that if someone calls and says somebody's unconscious here, and they're dead, there's no way you can stab somebody in the chest and really eviscerate them without leaving a
yes, thank you. Thank you.
Call the police and say, look, there's somebody unconscious. You say there's blood everywhere. Somebody's.
Yes, thank you.
Something's wrong with that.
Amen.
Killings were so instantaneous, which belies
that's what's missing.
The argument that there are multiple stab wounds.
What about it, Joe Scott?
Yeah, I'm thinking there is an outside possibility that science could have the answer here, and this is what I believe. If they are careful in collecting their evidence, the person who was the first to be attacked will have the least amount of others' DNA on them. And what I mean by that is once that knife, assuming, of course, that they're using only one instrument, once that blade's introduced into that first person's body, they withdraw that blade, okay? They now move over to the next person, and then...
Who was the first victim? One, how did the perpetrator get in? Did they maneuver on the second floor first? First floor first? Or third floor first? Who was the first victim? Who was the second? So on and so forth. As you hear in this commentary, you will know by the least amount of DNA, because at some point, all of the DNA will be mixed in once you get the victim 2 through 4. Very good point. So the person with the least mixture of DNA from the other victims, that would be victim number 1. Who was that? And who got the brunt of the knife wounds? Who was the main target? Because I refuse to believe somebody had it in for all of these girls. I believe Ethan was just in the way, and they decided to kill everybody, asked not to have anybody hearing anything, mumbling around, want to get a soda pop, water, and see me coming in, trying to get the hell out of there. Because it doesn't matter if the person knows them or not, you're still in somebody's house committing a crime, and you can be seen. Were there inside cameras? Did any of the girls have cameras inside of their room as to deter theft? Or were they trusting each other and didn't think they needed any inside cameras? Any cameras on the outside? We do have information that a neighbor has a doorbell camera. So what I am fearful of is that the killer has heard this and he or she or they may start trying to figure out who's got the doorbell camera. There's a house sitting to the left. I don't know what's sitting in the front row because I haven't seen a visual of that. But this is scary as hell because what if somebody decides they want to start knocking off anybody in close proximity to that house because you've now released that to the public, that a doorbell camera caught the girls coming home. That's how you know what time they came in. This is not good. Does the perpetrator live in the apartment sitting above the house to the right or the house to the left, house in front of the property? Are we talking about a neighbor has murdered the women and the male? Who's our perpetrator? Young, old, middle age? What are we saying?
They now move over to the next person and then reintroduce that blade into the next victim's body and so forth and so on.
There's your sequence.
And you have what's referred to as commingling of blood and certainly biological material, DNA. So the person, if they work their trace evidence right at the scene, the person that has the least amount of DNA from someone else, there's a higher likelihood that person could be the first victim, Nancy.
Guys, take a listen to our Cut 43. This is Sarah Robinson along with family members.
He says Xana was in constant communication with her family and nothing about that night seemed unusual.
The door locks with the number code. Every time you open it, like I had to go back to I had to go around the house to get in the house because the number code. So they either knew that or they just kind of went around and found the slider open.
A father struggling to understand how this could have happened. Why Xana?
They were just hanging out at home.
Yeah.
Xana was hanging out at home with her boyfriend.
The code on the front door, the sliding glass door on the side of the building, affixed to a little patio, kind of a wraparound patio. What's the point of entry? Because there you will find fingerprints. And I say absolutely you will, because this type.
Nancy says you absolutely will. Well, Nancy, I hope that you're correct because who's to say that the perpetrator wore knit gloves, leather gloves, latex gloves, brought latex spare? How do we know? Are we just assuming because someone says the scene was sloppy that the perpetrator didn't wear gloves? He or she or they had to have known using a knife would get very messy because many perpetrators have stabbed themselves, cut themselves because they were stabbing the victim so many times. You hear in this commentary that each victim was stabbed multiple times. How many times were the victims stabbed? Where were they stabbed? Face, neck, chest, back, stomach, legs, hands? One or more fought back. Which victim fought back? Did the perpetrator slip up and call them by their names? Bingo card. You see, we don't even know who the perpetrator is. And they are free. And they're listening to podcasts and all of this stuff we're discussing. So don't ever say what a person will and won't do because they just murdered 4 people. They don't have a problem with taking out 5. Don't ever get it mistaken. Because they have nothing to lose. And many people have been murdered when the perpetrator found out they were an eyewitness. Don't ever think a person won't kill again. You've killed 4, you don't have a problem with killing number 5. You'd have to be insane to think they wouldn't kill again. They have 4 under their belt that we know of. Has the perpetrator killed anybody else? Attempted to kill anybody else? Attempt to break in someone's house? Rob somebody? What is the motive for this vicious crime? What if it's just No motive. Just found a house, wanted to play funny games. Some of you would probably be stunned, but there are people who get down like that. They didn't have a rhyme or a reason, didn't know the victims. They just made their way in and played funny games with the victims. Is this our scenario or is this personal? Thank you for joining me.
Will find fingerprints. And I say absolutely you will, because this type of frenzied attack is not conducive to the mind of a killer who would wear gloves and then conduct 4 frenzied attacks. That is inconsistent. What do we know investigators are doing right now? They are retracing the steps. 2 of the victims were at a sports bar and then a food truck. 2 of the victims had been to a fraternity party at the Sigma Chi house and then came back to the residence on King Road. Why? Because they are looking for suspects. Take a listen to Amanda Rowley at Crim.
Investigators believe Madison and Kaylee were at the Corner Club on Saturday from 10 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. Sunday morning. Then they were at the Grub Truck on Main Street at 1:40 a.m. 5 minutes later, the map says they returned to their home on King Road. Investigators also believe Ethan and Xana were at a party at Sigma Chi from 8 to 9 p.m. Saturday night, then returned to the King Road home at 1:45 a.m. on Sunday. The hope is that someone might remember being at or near these locations around the same time and potentially saw something suspicious or relevant to the investigation. Police are asking those people to call the tip line number or email that information.
The tip line is 208-883-7054. Repeat, 208-883-7054. Dale, is that you jumping in? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's just a dead end street. Look, the individual who murdered these folks was laying in wait, backed up on the hill, came in through that sliding glass door, and perpetrated the crimes. He has no association with other people, and you're likely to find that the individual is either living in the woods, like individuals in prior cases that are not part of polite society. They're not part of our society. You can see them. They're living home.
Is there somebody living in the woods? Well, he wouldn't be there now, considering he's killed these people. Do you all believe somebody was living in the woods? Drifter, hanging around the neighborhood, maybe hanging around that apartment complex, needing some money, needing some liquor, needing some drugs. What are we talking about here? Because you can't even say who did it. You don't know. Because you have too many people involved. Too many victims, too many people living around the victims, too many people were coming in and out of the house. They were college students. They had jobs. Was the person a drifter, homeless person living in behind that house in the woods and pounced? What are we saying? Well, some people can stand the cold depending on what they have, dear. And as I told you, for somebody to lie in wait, they still would have to know nobody was in there. Because if you're in the back hiding out, how are you going to know when they're coming and going? You can't see from the front of the house when the girls are leaving, walking, driving, being picked up, call an Uber. How are you going to know? That means you'd have to come from behind the house and peep. Wouldn't you be seen? There's no leaves on the trees. Stay woke. And you're more obvious in the winter because there are no leaves. Leaves make noise when you're wrestling with your shoes, your boots. Stay woke. Lying in wait, drifter, random, homeless, somebody they know. It's still risky to lie in wait when you have all of these houses right next close to the property. How do you know somebody doesn't have a bullseye view of their bedroom window or something at the back of the house to look out, another neighbor's house? Because all the houses in the apartment buildings are close proximity. Anybody could look and see, hey, there's a guy, he's been standing there for a while. Let me call the police. See, you don't know. That's his theory. I have not come up with a theory yet. But I'm debunking what doesn't sound logical to me. It's not to say it's not true, but I'm debunking theories in this podcast.
Like society, they're not part of our society. You can see them. They're living homeless. They're different than us, and they feel alienated from us. And that's one of the driving features that causes them to injure us, aside from any other psychological problem that they have.
What do you make of that to you, Dr. Joy Crossan?
I agree with it. I think this person is going to be like a transient person with no real ties to that community. You know, in college towns, they can blend in real easy with the students, and the people that go unnoticed, be anonymous, basically.
Transient, homeless person. Is this our perpetrator? But as I said, these houses are very close together. You see one house facing the driveway right beside the left side of the house, if I'm not mistaken. So who's going to be just walking around looking cruddy, not knowing who's looking out of their window? Many people do look out of their windows. Maybe some young people don't, but older people do. They look out. And I want to know how you think a transient would blend in with college students if they're cruddy. I don't think so. I don't think so. Because if I see you 2 times in a week hanging around anywhere in the same clothes, I'm going to assume you don't have anywhere to live. And you look nasty and grungy. So I want to know what makes you think the person is just going to blend in. Then you have to count the age of the drifter, transient. Do you have a specific age? 20s, 30s, what? Trust me, you're a transient, you're going to stick out. I don't know why anyone would think that you would blend in. You would blend in if you were in a major city where people don't give a damn and they're about their business and they're not trying to pay attention to you, this is what people do in major cities. They keep it moving. Let's hear more of this commentary. Thank you all so much for the time.
Go unnoticed, be anonymous, basically. And then, just like Dale was saying, if they get a fixation, stalking, or see a target, and then they're gone. They're in and out.
Okay. Joe Scott Morgan, how does that jive with police theories that this was a targeted attack?
Well, yeah, I think that there's a chance that this individual has been watching for a while. Again, I go back to this idea of the points of observation. If they had been tracking these girls, listen, it would have been the perfect environment that night. If they had been watching them on any level, watching them go to parties, they're walking around. Remember when we saw that image at the food truck, they're kind of jovial, laughing, cutting up. They had been out partying that night, and they were perfect targets at that moment in time for somebody.
Perfect targets. This guy's assertion is that they were perfect targets that night, but you have to use deduction. How did the girls get from point A to point B that night? You do not know. All you know is that they took a transit ride with someone home, but you do not know how they got out for the evening. Although it's been said that they were in walking distance of the campus and those places they were, the bar and the food truck, but bring a receipt of how they got there. And the fact that they left by a share ride, that means the perpetrator, how was he or she going to follow them home if they were on foot and the kids jumped in a car? Try again. I can't follow you on foot and you're driving. How do I know which direction you went in? That means I'd have to already know where you live, bingo card. So I doubt that it was anybody hanging out at the food truck or the bar. Because if I picked you out that night, I don't even know how you got out. I don't know if you are on foot, you rode a bicycle, skateboard, taxi, Uber. How do I know how you got there? How would I know how you got out that night? And if you jumped in a car and I'm on foot, then how am I going to follow you unless I already knew where you lived and had information to where you might be hanging? But that goes to the person would have had to follow them around all night. And you've got to pinpoint if the girls walked everywhere up until getting home by the share ride, or they jumped from car to car. See, nobody's mentioned how. So I doubt that we're going to go with somebody saw them that night, because you would have had to follow them home by the way they went home. And if you're on foot, you're not going to know where they live. So we're going to debunk that theory. Now, could it be the perpetrator talked to them by phone and told them what they were doing? Text messaging through the night. Yeah, we're going over here. Yeah, we're going to stop over here. Yeah, we're at the food truck. Now I've got dibs on what you're doing. Yeah, we're just getting out of the car. Yeah, we just got in. Yeah, we're putting on our nightgown. Who is the perpetrator? Did they make some attempt trying to follow the ladies? Phone hack, what? But as I said, them hanging out that night, you'd have to know exactly where they were going and how they would be maneuvering by foot or car. And if you're on foot, stalking them from bar to bar, they would have to be on foot. And then how are you going to, as I once said, follow them once they get in a car and you're on foot? Make that make sense. Maybe they were talking to their perpetrator via phone, and that perpetrator knew when they were going to be at the house. And they innocently told their business. Because when people are drinking, they talk too much. And they reveal things about themselves under the influence of alcohol. And I think most of us know this. And then next day you talk to the person, they don't even remember what they said. Let's finish this up.
That moment in time for somebody that was looking to strike. And again, brutally cold at night, this person feels comfortable moving around in that environment. You saw everybody was wearing hoodies, jackets, and all that sort of thing. They would have to be comfortable in that environment walking around. So that might go to the point that they are transient, that they're not part of polite society.
We are learning more and more about the timeline. That's the first thing you do, is try to establish a timeline. Take a listen to our friend Zoreen Shaw.
A sister of one of the 4 college students found murdered at an off-campus house near the University of Idaho, revealing new clues.
So I was able to get a pretty good timeline on Kaylee and Maddie the night of, from about 10:15 until shortly before 3 a.m.
Olivia Gonzalez says she discovered at least 6 calls from her sister Kaylee's phone between 2:26 and 2:52 made to a boyfriend in the early morning of November 13th. Detectives now saying these phone calls are part of their investigation.
The phone calls are critical because we know that Gonzalez was up, Xana was up at 2:52 a.m. Let me think that through. 2:52 a.m. It was Kelly, not Xana Kernoodle. Kelly was up at 2:52 a.m. on the phone. Yet, Audrey Conklin, they're starting the timeline of the murders at 3 a.m.
Right. So police have said that between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. is when the murders occurred. So they could have been asleep. But yeah, phone activity shows that they were up and trying to contact people right before the murders occurred.
It's very creepy.
Yes, it is.
Jory Carlson.
Yes, it is.
To know that one of the victims, Kelly, is on the phone at 2:52 a.m.
2:52 a.m. on the phone. Did she go directly to sleep after making that phone call? We also hear that one had the other girl use her phone to call the said boyfriend. I can't remember these kids' names, but anyway. Why use the other girl's phone? What's the person? Did she feel like he was ignoring her? But we later hear the boy said something about he was asleep, but he doesn't want to talk about the situation. Why not? You haven't done anything, so what's the big deal by saying, yeah, she called my phone, I was asleep. You don't want to talk to the news about the phone call. Were there some text messages that you didn't want to be revealed when asked by a news reporter? I think it's very interesting. This boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, whoever the hell he is, he doesn't want to talk about those phone calls he missed, which I'm trying to figure out what's the big deal. You didn't answer him, so what's the problem? So were there some not so nice texts sent to this guy by the young lady? And he's worried that people are going to get wind of what she was saying. I don't know. It's strange to me. Very, very strange. They're suspecting the killer came in between 3 and 4. Why that time? So we're to believe 3 to 4. That's a big gap, 1 hour. And this young lady's on the phone, 2:52. So sometime after 2:52, the killer is rummaging around, either making his way into the house within an hour and or was already in the house. Which is it? Or did one of the girls get up and let somebody in? That's why it would be wonderful to know if these girls had ADT on this structure and the door has the time of doors opening and closing, glass door and front door. We may not be that lucky because I do not know if the girls had ADT or some type of security system on the property. But it would be wonderful if they did, and we could get that information of what time any door was open. Because the doors make a ping sound when you open or close the door. So did these ladies have security system? Surveillance cameras inside, in their house, hidden, visible. But we do know a neighbor has a doorbell camera and it clocks the girls coming home. So thank God for that. Now let's see if we get a mystery person walking around stalking the property on the said doorbell camera. Amen. One second.
And the timeline says the murders at 3 a.m. Could someone have been watching and when the lights are turned off, they enter the home?
They could have already been in the home.
Okay.
And waiting, for settling down, like hearing a conversation on the phone. Okay, let the phone get hung up. One thing you mentioned earlier about the weapon, and they were looking and checking at the stores to see if somebody bought. I would think this weapon is really important to them. I don't think they just went out and bought it. I think they've had it for a while. This has been part of that identity, if you lack for a better psychological term.
Well, it is actually an identity. Every time that we go camping, when we run into other campers, a lot, and it's usually men, will have huge hunting knives and sheaths attached to their belts. The way people will attach like an iPhone or some other instrument or tool to their belts. These knives are attached to them. So that does speak to their identity.
Yeah, and here in the South, everybody carries a knife. They got those clip-on ones.
I don't know about that because I don't know a single soul that carries a knife other than the scout troop leader, the man.
The people Nancy. Good Lord.
You guys go ahead and carry a knife. That's your business. Take a listen now to Captain Roger.
You live in Atlanta. You should have a knife or a gun.
On the morning of November 13th at 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was. On the evening of November 12th, Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Morgan were at a local bar and were later at a food truck in downtown Moscow. They arrived home at approximately 1:45 a.m. on the morning of November 13th. Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were at the Sigma Chi house before also arriving home at approximately 1:45 a.m. Two surviving roommates were also out in the community, and they returned home at approximately 1 a.m. and did not wake up until later that morning.
All right.
Scouring the area for video surveillance. I'm talking about Ring doorbell cameras, stoplight cameras, business surveillance video, such as at the corner bar where they were, two of them were that night, at the food trucks where we spot two of the victims at the food truck just before their murders. Was that you, Dale? Jump in.
It was. Look, they're going to find a sniper's hide up on the hill behind that house. That's where their evidence is going to be. This person has waited for them to come home. He didn't follow them. He wasn't watching them and following behind them in a car or on a bike. He was waiting. And that's where the first investigation should have been conducted candidly. And I taught serial killers for the Bureau for a number of years. Those people have the patience of Job. They will wait and wait and wait until the opportunity is perfect from their perspective. What we've got to worry about is there's another pet that was killed, and I handled a case or was involved in a case involving that sort of thing, where the pet started going missing first, and then there was a homicide that was directly connected to the individual who was taking the pet.
Hold on, Audrey Conklin joining us from Fox News Digital. Has a connection been made in any way from a pet to the quadruple murder?
No connections have been made yet between any kind of animal violence and the murders, but I'm sure that's something police are looking at.
What about this theory, Audrey? What about the theory that the perp came into the home while everyone was gone? Every single person was out of that home. All 6 were gone. The 5 roommates and the boyfriend, Ethan, all gone. When they come home and he's already in there and everybody starts settling down to sleep, I wonder if it happened like that. Or Joe Scott, did he enter after they were asleep through that sliding glass door? What do you think?
First blush, when I heard about this, I really had thought that this guy was possibly laying in wait inside the residence.
I mean, he could be in there for any reason, looking for food, looking for money, looking for something to steal, and then everybody starts coming home. He may have thought they were away.
Yeah, and it's like Dale was saying, this is this individual's sole focus in life, perhaps. His target, he can sit there and wait because he's totally fixed on these individuals as targets, or maybe one of them that he's zeroed in on. And it would not surprise me if they were to find evidence within the house that he had been hiding somewhere, sequestered somewhere in that house and waiting for them to come in. But we don't know. And given the fact that there was, it seems at least, that there may have been a lack of security at the scene when processing. And look, you have to say things are chaotic at the beginning with many times like this, but it's troubling to me. I hope they haven't missed something outside the house.
The dog, Dale Carson, is talking about high-profile lawyer out of Jacksonville, former Fed with the FBI, a woman who lives near the quadruple murder there in Idaho, about 3 miles, says her little mini Australian shepherd had literally been filleted a few weeks before the quadruple murder, making some people think that the two are connected. Back to this. Take a listen to Chief James Fry.
Detectives are looking to develop any content that would help us in this event. Anyone who has observed any notable behavior or has any video surveillance or can provide relevant information about these murders, please call our tip line at 208-883-7180. Or you can email the tip line and that is tipline@ci.moscow.id.us.
And more from Captain Roger Lanier. Listen.
On the morning of November 13th at 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was placed to the Wicom Dispatch Center reporting an unconscious person. The call originated from inside the residence and was made from the phone of one of the surviving roommates. Moscow Police Department officers responded and located 4 victims.
So you see here it says surviving victims. And one of you want to come here and argue about it was a friend. That's the whole point of this story. There is conflict with all this information. And I'm not here to argue anything because I was not there. The point of a story is that somebody's going to give a version. And the only way you're going to know who went to the house at what time is if you have them on video surveillance or a doorbell camera or GPS on their phone if they have the notifications on. That's the only way you're going to know who got in the house first or last. But I'm not here to argue who was where first or last. Because I wasn't there. And none of us were there. The phone ping would be the only way you know who walked into the house first or last. Who walked back out of the house. Surveillance or cell phone pings. 2 weeks in, I won't be surprised. They've got a little bit of information pertaining to the victims' cell phones. But once again, as you hear here, this man is saying the phone call came from the house at 11:58 a.m. to the police by one of the survivors. But then earlier, Nancy says she backtracked and said it was survivor's friend. I don't know who made the damn phone call. Tell you the truth.
4 victims, 2 on the 2nd floor and 2 on the 3rd floor.
We're getting a little clarification regarding who made the 911 call. Take a listen again to Chief James Fry.
Gotti Schwartz, NBC News. Just following up on the 911 call, you said that you don't believe that's the killer. Can you conclusively rule out the person that called 911 from inside the home as a suspect in this case?
Can you go ahead and just ask that one more time, please?
The person that was inside the home that called 911 that was not one of the roommates. Can you conclusively rule that person out as a suspect at this point?
I don't think I said that it wasn't one of the roommates. I said that it was used with the roommate's phone.
I believe you did. Somebody asked if that was the killer, and you said no.
No, that's correct.
Was there someone there other than the 2 roommates when police responded?
There was other friends that had arrived at the location.
So that goes back to what Audrey Conklin from Fox News Digital was telling us, that one of the roommates apparently couldn't wake up a victim. Maybe she just called her through the door. I don't know. And then she, the surviving roommate, called friends over. The friends come over. One of them uses roommate's phone to call 911. There's a lot that's been made about who called 911.
Yes.
It's a friend of the surviving roommate. And they have been ruled out as suspects along with the surviving roommates. Here's more from Captain Roger Lanier.
Investigators have determined the 2 areas of interest within the city and have provided maps which are on our Facebook page and on our website. And these are areas that they have canvassed for additional surveillance video and tips and have contacted several residents in the areas. The areas are generally south of Taylor Avenue to Palouse River Drive and west of Highway 95. Detectives have also canvassed several other neighborhoods looking for evidence, looking for additional surveillance video, and contacting residents and speaking to them to see if they may have heard or seen something.
To you, Jessica Morgan, I think that what the police need to be doing right now, and I've got it narrowed down to 4 or 5 things. 1, looking for the suspects and retracing. That would include Corner Club, where Mogan Gonsalves went, then the Grub Truck, and of course the Sigma Chi house. 2, look at all the ring cams, the doorbell cams, the surveillance video. The DNA, there's no way that this scene could have played out the way it did without fiber, fingerprints, DNA, hair, And they're going to have to use ancestral DNA, and I'll tell you why. Because I believe that the perp may not be in CODIS or APHIS.
Yes.
They may get a fingerprint
I
or
agree.
DNA at the scene, but they don't have anything to match it to. Explain.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't know that I agree relative to fingerprints. I think that this person probably has been an offender at some point in time.
Possible.
If they can recover a latent print at that scene, and trust me, this is an evidence-rich environment. This place would have been bathed in blood, Nancy. He's going to transfer a lot of stuff, and he can
totally
potentially have left bloody fingerprints behind if he's not wearing gloves. And it's like you said at the open, I don't know that this guy is sophisticated enough to have shown up with gloves.
No
he
way.
Probably has a real desire to run his hands over these surfaces, I would imagine. So he's going to leave something of himself behind.
Absolutely. Somewhere out there are bloody clothes, bloody shoes.
Yeah, one more thing I have to emphasize. As feverish as this was, Nancy, there is a high probability that this monster cut himself.
Yes.
Because he may have left his DNA behind, commingled with the victim's DNA as well.
We wait as justice unfolds. Nancy Grace, Crime Stories, signing off.
All right. Nancy Grace, Crime Stories. Please check out the available content. Let's chop it up. The link has been dropped in the chat. If you want to give your opinion pertaining to the theories mentioned in this podcast by Miss Nancy herself and her guests, I'm going to try to go over it vigorously once again. Who is our perpetrator? 1, 2, 3. How many people are we talking about? White, black, short, tall, fat, in good shape. How did they enter into the house? By the balcony, open window, what? Lying in wait, as I already told you, you would be visible back there at some point because you got houses and apartments. Who knows who's looking and watching? You can't see the front of the house from the back of the house. So how are you going to know when to make your move to try to get in the house? Because you can't see cars coming to know who's actually gone, if that was your motive to get in the house while they were gone. Homeless person, transient's been mentioned. Living in the woods. Was this a robbery? And they got caught up, couldn't get out in time, so they lied in wait. What happened? Changed their mind, decided, well, we can't get out, we'll just go ahead and kill everybody. Were things stolen from the victims? iPads, cell phones, jewelry, mementos, underwear. What? No sexual assaults. So what was the motive? Lying in wait. Did somebody lie in wait outside or inside? How did they get in? Very interesting. Some felt like they were in a hurry. The killing. That's why they didn't sexually assault the victims. But I don't believe that, because a sadist would want to touch and feel. Assault the victim if indeed she is a sadist. So I don't think they would be in such a hurry just to stab them. So then you're talking about having sex with a bloody victim. Stay woke. Not to say it has not happened, but I think a person would want to have sex first before stabbing, strangling, and or shooting the victim. Just saying. Crime scene had no order, compromised by law officials. Is this true? Rage used. Is it possible that the perpetrator is impotent? Was there a woman along for this ride? Was it orchestrated by a woman, but exacted by a man or men? What's the motive? Hate. By whom? Somebody that hates women, revenge, jealousy. Same knife used, other knives used. Were the victims beat, hit with other objects? Random attacks? What are we saying? Were the victims asleep or not? No weapon found. Once again, how many knives were used on the victims? Open doors, open windows. How did the perpetrator get in? Who are our suspects? Roommates, friends of roommates, drifter, transient, neighbor, co-worker, maintenance worker, the person that owns the house, friends, family, affiliates, children, relatives, delivery, food services, UPS, FedEx, mailman, stalker, ex-boyfriend, new boyfriend, old friends, fell out with somebody at the schoolhouse, relative, perpetrator on foot or drove. Did he or she clean up while on scene? Because there is the notion that perhaps the perpetrator cut him or herself. Did they leave behind the evidence, DNA, fibers, hair? Did anybody try to grab the person's hair, beard, clean shaven, short hair, long hair, overcoat, jacket, tracksuit, hoodie? What did the perpetrator have on? Blue jeans, shorts, pants, boots. Heard it was sloppy. A lot of blood was left behind, so somebody was tracking blood in and out, and that's why some of us are questioning the roommate's account of calling friends first, because you can't make me believe you did not see blood when you got up that morning and went upstairs, either second or third floor, because I don't know which person you were looking for. You had to have seen blood on either floor because the perpetrator was up there. Yes, we heard that possibly there are defensive wounds. Did he cut himself? DNA under the fingernails of the victims? Cross DNA, sweat, blood from the victim on the victims. Blood from the perpetrator if he or she cut himself. Did they have long hair, short hair, a beard? Did one of the young men or women try to grab their face, facial hair, scratch them? Did the perpetrator call one of the victims by their name? Interesting. Doorbell cameras from a neighbor. What will it reveal of a suspect? Will the killer try to find the neighbor with the camera? Were there cameras on the inside? Some of you believe they were followed from the bar and the food truck. I'm going to debunk that theory because the girls got in a car from the food truck. So you now got to prove how they got from the bar to the food truck. What is the proximity of the bar and the food truck? And if the person was watching and stalking and he was on foot, he could not have followed them because they got in a share ride. So I'm going to debunk that theory. But how did the perpetrator get there? Did he walk or did he drive a car, bicycle, skateboard? What? Live near the property at the apartment complex or the houses nearby? House across the street, live in the neighborhood. Passerby noticed the girls. Became fixated. What are we saying? Stalker? What? Young, old, middle-aged, strong, virile, can climb, in good shape, stocky built, heavy set. What are we saying? How did the perpetrator enter the house, exit the house? How bad are we talking with the blood? Spatter, matter, scene, droplets, trail from one place to the other? I'd say so. Did he wear a mask, gloves, carry extra clothing, backpack, latex gloves? What did he carry with him? More than one knife? Did he break a knife? Bingo card. Did he break a knife into one of the victims and had a spare? Did he use a knife from the property? Bet you didn't think about that. Is this sporadic planned? Wasn't somebody fascinated, just wanted to walk around the house and look at the girls, go through their dresser drawers, go through their underwear? We've got sick people like that. This is how it starts, peeping Toms, stealing underwear. And somebody came home. What are we saying? Already in the house, what? Stalker, friend, associate, what? What are we saying? Where does the perpetrator live? On the same street? The apartment complex next door? Neighboring house? Outside the city, suburbs, dorm, nearby? Has anyone noticed any oddities with anyone's behavior, acting strange, talking about the crimes excessively? Derogatory talk about the women, the victims. Saying things that only the perpetrator would know. Has anyone close to the victims been acting strange? The roommates, the family, the friends, boyfriends, ex-boyfriends. Has the perpetrator been back to the scene of the crime out of curiosity? Anybody scared to talk because they feared they are now sleeping with the enemy? Has anyone been threatened because they've been found out? Has the perpetrator threatened friend, family, somebody? Once again, has the perpetrator been back watching? Did he, she, they take souvenirs, steal from the victims, credit cards, debit cards, underwear, rings, jewelry, iPads, cell phones? Left a calling card to let the police know, yes, I've been here. Wrote something on the wall, in a diary, on a sheet of paper, on the victim. Because they said, we know it was a targeted attack because of the evidence. So what is the evidence? Shoe prints. Forgot about that. What size are the shoe prints? Any have blood and a good looking print on a shoe. If they stood outside watching, any footprints in the dirt? Anything left behind, such as a cigarette butt? Is our perpetrator a smoker? Black and mild, cigarettes, blunts. What are we talking about? Is he, she, they drug users? Is this drug related? Family member. What are we saying? Ex-boyfriend, girlfriend. Any type of homosexuality activity between the girls. Menage a trois, entanglement. Somebody's mad, angry. What is the motive? Has the perpetrator done this before? Will they be apprehended? Is it more than one perpetrator? What is the race of our demon seeds? Have they committed any other type of petty crimes, sexual assaults, robbery, attempted robberies, theft, fraud, any other type of felonious behavior? Or is this the start of something new for our killer? Are we now looking at someone who could possibly be our next serial killer, sadist? Are they from the area? Could we be talking about somebody that's not even from Idaho? They're from Utah, Colorado, Oregon, Washington State. This side of the universe is known for serial killers and rapists, for those who follow true crime. Green River Killer, Ted Bundy. The list goes on and on. Was this a robbery gone bad? Got caught up in the house. People started coming in and was trapped and did not want to walk out, asked to be recognized, trying to get out. Where were the victims found? In their rooms, doorways, living spaces, quarters, kitchen, bathtub, bathroom. Where were all the victims found? Who had the most wounds? Who was the target? I refuse to believe that all four were targets. That's a mighty mean list. To be angry at least 3 people if we remove Ethan. Has this place been staked out before by the perpetrator? Did somebody owe somebody money, a favor? Diss somebody on social media, talk bad about somebody on social media, curse somebody out, said something derogatory, coworker mad, got a crush, asked one of the ladies out on a date, rebuffed. Does this have anything to do with social media? Posts, talking too much, telling personal business. What are we saying? A neighbor would be a very good suspect because a neighbor has time to watch and gawk at the cars coming in and leaving out. Who sits out on the balcony the most? Your neighbor is your best suspect because they have a bullseye view of you coming and going. If they have direct contact visually of you parking your car and going in the door. And who better than that house that sits right there to the left, if I'm not mistaken? Just sit there all day in a chair and watch the people come and go and realize they got in an Uber, they got in a car, and you know them by face, and you now have assumed they are all gone for the evening. 203 in a room. Thank you so much for your time. This is a very baffling case. No profile, no suspects have been revealed to the general public. The information that they didn't have a medical examiner is baffling to me. So that leads me to wonder what kind of, what is going on with this police department. Because if you don't have a medical examiner coroner, how in the hell are you going to solve crime? Because you now have 4 on the books. What are you going to do the next time somebody gets murdered? Somebody goes missing. You have to have adequate people to solve crime. Seasoned detectives, forensic analysts. This will be bad if every time something goes bump in the night in this Moscow, you've got to go call the FBI, your local government agency, state police. This ain't good. And I am very disappointed that a nurse is rendering any type of information pertaining to the crime. She is not a doctor. We need to know what they ate, what's in their stomach, food digested, undigested, natural causes. Did somebody have a stroke or heart attack while being brutalized? The nurse can't tell us that. I do believe the FBI is involved. And right now, you can't come up with a suspect because, as I said, there's too many moving parts, too many victims. They were students, victims, too many victims, too many people involved in their lives, neighbors. This is horrible. You want to give your opinion? I'm almost 2 hours into this live. Feel free to hit the link. If not, I will vacate the premises. I want to have faith in LE because I do not like to start off bashing any law enforcement department. But when you hear people critiquing the beginning of the investigation, there's too many people wandering around, things not being covered up, you have to wonder what is going on. And I don't know if they mean that the car should have been covered. Do all the cars have their keys? That's something. May not be nothing. But are all the cars there? All the keys in the car to the cars? Anything stolen from the victims? As I said, those things are very important. And then who's going to say if a pair of underwear or socks are missing? Because a lot of killers like souvenirs. I think most of you know this. Is this a first round for the killer? They were just getting their feet wet. See if I can get away with it. See, we don't even know what we're dealing with. That's why you don't even have a suspect or a profile. Because we don't even know who the hell did this. But do the police have an idea and they just have not told us yet? That could be it. They have an idea, but they're keeping it close to the vest because they do not want to compromise this investigation, which I totally understand. 1 minute, sweetheart. Thank you all so much for your time. This has been a very interesting live stream. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to Nancy Grace and her partners. It's amazing how people think. But I'm one to try to dissect the information and debunk any theory. And it's not to say that any one theory is right or wrong, but you want to try to make it make sense, the theory. But then this is true crime, and it doesn't have to make any sense because it's a crime. And you're dealing with the illogical. I think they knew the victims probably know the entrance inside the house might have been there before. Could be another student. Yes, Maria, could be. Yes, somebody could have known the house. And that would be your perfect suspect. That's why I said somebody who they were talking to and did not know they were giving privileged information to, such as the coming and goings, when they're leaving, when they're going. So the perpetrator would know when to meet up with them, lie in wait, whichsoever. My first victim, Angry Mimi. Hello, dear.
Hi, how are you?
I am blessed. How are you? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. You look great this Thanksgiving, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. What do you think about the information in this podcast?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I was stunned at the fact that this coroner is not really trained to be a coroner.
Yeah, that's scary. That's very scary.
And I don't think I knew that kind of information existed or that you could be a coroner until several months ago. But I certainly had no clue that it was the instance in this case. And I think that this department is in way over their head.
Tell me why.
Well, let's go back to what you had to say.
Okay.
Too many moving parts.
Yes.
Too many victims.
Yes.
Too many people moving around.
Yeah, coming and going.
The complicated crime scene.
Yeah.
The fact that...
Do you think they did a good job at the crime scene? Even though we were not there, we don't know what they did and didn't do. But just from listening to what they were saying in this, you know, these people do get wind of things that we don't. Maybe they heard some things and then they were visually seeing things not covered up. So maybe in their minds, hey, cars should be covered up because maybe the killer sat on one of the cars and left his fingerprints. We don't know.
I would love to say I think they've done an excellent job. And maybe they have as far as they're able or their skill set. But I can't imagine in this kind of situation that they would catch or be able to get everything or maybe even a critical piece.
So explain what you mean by critical piece.
Well, you know, that one gentleman on Nancy Grace's show said that what victim had the least amount of, let's say, cross.
Yes, that's going to be your victim number one that was hurt.
Right, that'd be the starting point, right?
Yes. Do they know that though?
Exactly.
But how are we going to do that when we've got a jacked up medical examiner? And then that's going to leave me to think, do you have adequate people that can test the forensics? So I'm praying the FBI will be doing all of that.
Well, I would pray so, but when did they bring the FBI in, and to what extent do they have that evidence that isn't contaminated or jacked up? I think it's going to be a miracle if they are able to pinpoint somebody. And maybe it's the cell phone data that will do it.
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
Right now, with all that you've heard, which is not much, a lot of it's family members talking and giving up stuff that I think they're not supposed to be doing. Who do you think the suspect is? Do you have a general idea?
Well, I think the ex-boyfriend.
Okay. Why?
2 reasons. Well, 1 reason, because she kept trying to call him.
Okay.
And was calling him and calling him and
so what are you saying? He was there all alone?
I'm saying that you don't try to call somebody over and over and over again.
Yes, we do. Some of us do that.
Okay, wait a minute. If things are if things are going well.
Well, let me tell you this, because I don't know if you drink or not. Do you drink?
Oh, no, I don't. But I
okay,
have.
So You said no. Let me finish.
Okay.
When you drink alcohol, alcohol makes you do things you possibly wouldn't normally do when you were sober, but you might. Alcohol boosts you to do lots of things, and that would be one of the things. Excessively calling, trying to get an answer, trying to see if they're up. They said the girl was known to call people even for the most mundane of things, such as what should I eat? So maybe she was one of those type of people. She likes interacting with people, even though she possibly is sleepy and needs to go to bed. See, we don't know her.
Well, that's true. Point taken.
But then she's a young person too, so you should know they stay on phones all the time.
Right.
Most young people.
Yes.
Yes.
And I
young,
agree with that.
Fran says young and drunk. That's it. That's probably what it was. She was drunk. Hey, let me see what he's doing, because it's as we call it, creature of habit. That's the perfect way of putting it.
Right.
Creature
She was
of
doing
habit.
what was normal for her.
Exactly.
Okay. I get you. I wasn't thinking about that. I'm like,
That's
man,
okay.
I just know in my family when somebody's calling you and calling you and calling you.
Well, I've done it. I'm grown and I ain't been drunk. I want to know why the hell you ain't answering your damn phone. If I got something I want to say to you and I want you to answer, yeah, I
Answer your
keep calling.
damn
And then
phone.
I look back and say, damn, you know how many times you just called? But I don't do that with everybody. See, it's only a specific person I would do that with.
Right.
I don't do that with a lot of people.
I agree. Well, I just wanted to say that I think it's extremely disheartening.
Okay.
The whole situation. I mean, you couldn't have a worse. I want to say comedy of errors, but it's not a comedy. It's horrible, and it's.
I find something odd. Excuse me. I find something odd with the roommates, the calling of the friends, toy. I find it strange calling the
Yes.
friends when you should have been going to the doors of the dead people,
Yeah,
which you wouldn't have known that they were dead, of course. I guess.
I apologize, but I am really confused by that part, and I don't understand that kind of thinking. Is it because they're young?
Okay.
They're hungover. They're
Mhm.
not in their right mind. I
Pauline
just
has a
don't
good
get it.
comment. How did the killer walk away with no blood? Somebody seeing him? Did he take Ethan's clothes and change? Very good point. I didn't think about that because I did say the other day he couldn't have put on the girl's clothes. I didn't even think about Ethan. See how you miss stuff?
Yeah.
You could take you know how many notes I have on this sheet of paper? And that's one that wasn't on there. Could the killer have put on Ethan's clothes? Because there's no way you walked out of there bloody, not knowing if you're going to get pulled over by the police on foot, on car. Did he park his car around the corner? So you don't know. You have no idea who the perpetrator or perpetrators are. Steph Wilson says the roommates give me bad vibes. Answer that for me, Angry Mimi, then go ahead and finish what you're going to say.
Yeah, I just real quick, I just wanted to say, I think that it was targeted, but not to everybody.
Right.
And I think it
so
was
the other people were collateral damage.
Well, I think it was done intentionally to make it harder to determine by
who the victim was, who my victim was, the intended
really
victim.
Was the victim.
Oh, so I kill everybody so you won't know I had a problem with Susie May.
Right. And it's harder for you to pinpoint me.
Very good point.
Because there's so many people to follow up on. Okay. I'll let you go. Love you, Queen.
Well,
I'll catch you later.
Do you have to run?
Oh, well, yeah, my husband was trying to go to bed and I'm a loud talker, so I'm sorry.
Well, look, so much for you sitting in the easy boy chair and talking in the living room somewhere.
Okay, sorry.
All right, thank you for your time.
I love you. Bye.
Love you too, honey. That's Angry Mimi. I only call that much for a booty call. Okay, Dakota. Wow, really? Damn. Backpack. I did mention that. Did the killer bring a backpack? Wore leather gloves, knitted gloves, latex gloves. Hit the link if you want to give your opinion pertaining to what Nancy Grace and her guests had to say and different theories of a person lying in wait, being inside of the house, camping outside, transient, homeless person. What are we saying? Friend, neighbor, foe? Somebody's been in the house, UPS driver, mailman, ex-friend, new friend, old friend, stalker, broke up relationship, friendship, relative, co-worker. What are we talking about? Who is our perpetrator? Who is our perpetrator, and how did he or she get into the house? Unlocked window or unlocked glass door? Did somebody close the front door properly? We didn't even ask that. There are times when you think you've shut the door, running out, rushing out, things in your hand, talking on the phone, not paying attention. I've done it. I've mentioned that. Another student, co-worker, classmate. I mentioned that as well, staff member. Or are we talking about somebody that hangs with these kids, had access, heard the code mentioned in conversation, and put the code in, walked through the front door, bingo card? We have no idea. If only the dead could talk to us and tell us who killed them, it would be vainglorious. But that would be too easy now, wouldn't it? And we know the dead tells no tales, allegedly. Did they leave something behind to let you know who their intended target was? Was one stabbed more times than the others? Anything done to the body that would be disrespectful? Anything done to the girl's hair? Stay woke. Turn your devices on, Sasha T. Where are you calling from? Hello?
Hello.
Where are you calling from? Hello? Well, I guess they don't have anything to say. It was pitch black dark, they wouldn't have been seen. Well, you'd be surprised what's seen in the dark. Just because I don't tell you what I saw, people see things all the time, they just don't say anything. Because you're talking about apartment complex sitting at the top. They have a bullseye view of the apartment complex because that building sits higher than their house. You know what they saw. Where you calling from, Sasha? Sasha T?
Hello.
Yes, I keep asking you and you won't say anything.
I don't know.
If there's anybody that'd like to hit the link to join this discussion, because I'm already 2 hours in. Sasha T, do you have something you'd like to say?
Can you hear me?
I've been hearing you. You won't say anything. I'm used to standing at the kitchen sink at 2:30 in the morning and have seen someone walking down my alley. Yes. That's why I said there's always somebody looking and watching. Well, what makes you think he's from another state? Well, you all can oblige the queen and hit the link. Thank you. Feel free to go back to the beginning of this live stream to hear the beginning of this podcast by Nancy Grace and her guests. Very interesting commentary. A lot of bickering back and forth about who made the phone call to 911, the roommate's friend, phone this, phone that. I started really getting pissed off with that because my thing is, how is it that you all don't know? One, they won't even reveal who it is. So why are we bickering back? It's ridiculous to me. Just nonsense. This is why I hate these type of stories. Because nobody's name has been mentioned. So who's going to actually tell the truth about whose phone was used to call 911? And frankly, those roommates, it's just something off about the version that's been spun. I don't know whose version it is. But somebody put the needle on the record that they called because somebody couldn't wake up. But as I've said before, I even heard these people say it. Why didn't you first hear, oh my goodness, I see blood. Oh my God, somebody's bloody. Oh my gosh, I see bloody footprints. Oh my gosh, I see blood on the walls. Come on now. Something's off here. Something is majorly off. Very sad. The roommates are a conundrum. I don't understand them at all. Okay. I think it might be some kid obsessed with serial killing, maybe obsessed with Bundy and the Gainesville Ripper, and is just trying to outdo someone else. Could be. I thought about that too. Gainesville is what came to mind after Ted Bundy. Both murders in the state of Florida and young students from the universities. I did think about that. Angry Mimi, I thought you were going to bed. You must be listening with headphones on. Well, that's the gist of my information for this live stream. That I don't have any idea. And usually the Queen would come up with somebody during an investigation. But because, as I said, this storyline has too many moving parts, which are the victims, I can't give a theory. I can't give a theory. I can't give a suspect. I can't say where the suspect came from, where he or she is, if it's more than one, if they wore gloves, didn't wear gloves. I don't even know how they came up with that notion they didn't wear gloves. That means you're assuming that what? They wanted to be bloody and I don't know. Cut themselves. Because even if you wear latex, you would cut yourself. The gloves would get wet. Very wet. If you all have something you'd like to say, hit the link. This is a live stream with a link dropped. If you have something you'd like to add to this live stream, you have been offered the opportunity to speak. The neighbor being the killer makes more sense to me. He would know their every move and he would know the schedule of the other's movements. Yes, that's why I said apartment building sitting to the top of the hill, a house or two in one, I think in back to the side. Then you have somebody lives in the front. I couldn't see that street. So who better to watch than someone who has something to not do all day, which is stare out of a window. Sit on their front porch. How about pull out binoculars? You know, binoculars do work. And you can learn a lot by watching people, either with your eyes or with binoculars. You can learn a whole lot by watching people, their movements, their demeanor, their attitude, and never speak to them, and they never speak to you. And God forbid these children have talked to the perpetrator, such as a neighbor, and told too much. Oh yeah, by the way, need to get that glass door fixed. That window never shuts properly. See, this is why I tell you, you have to be careful who you talk to. Because people who you think you can trust, you cannot. You think because you talk to a female, she wouldn't be dirty enough to cut your throat, stab you. Well, it's happened. You don't know people. And sadly, these children had to learn the hard way about life, that there are evildoers. no matter what the motive was, they're no longer here. Tracy says, think to kill all the females. Ethan was a surprise to the killer. Maybe. He felt comfortable enough to kill 4 people. He would not give a second thought to change his clothes and come back to watch the show when called a police psychopath with no remorse. Yes, I've mentioned that. I do believe the killer has been back. He's either come back by car or walked just to get a glimpse of what they were doing. Being in a car would be easier as not to be detected, to look, suspicious on foot. Well, the surviving roommates are suspect to me. They may not have had anything to do with it. They may have had just some very odd behavior, because we have learned in true crime that people had done very weird stuff, said weird stuff, joked, snickered, laughed, turned cartwheels, and all type of crazy shit, and they didn't have anything to do with the crime. But I cannot see living in a house with anyone and not trying to go notify that person of another person's illness, sickness, passed out. And now this woman in this commentary talking to Nancy Grace says, well, I hadn't heard that. So I thought, well, where have you been? Because that's the running version. Somebody saw somebody passed out. And I was assuming it was one of the girls. Maybe it was Ethan. I don't know. But nonetheless, why would I not go in the house where I'm living with my roommates? Why would I go call outsiders to come into a house when there's other people who live in the house with me? It's very peculiar. I saw an interview with the neighbor next door who says he sees them in their windows every night. Creepy. Don't remember whose channel. Well, he may not have anything to do with it. That's what happens when things go bad. People repeat stuff they've seen. He doesn't necessarily have to be the perpetrator, but he could have noticed, that they do stand in the window, dance or something. I think she had creepy vibes and was frightened and tried to call ex-boyfriend for help. That would explain the numerous calls. Okay. No, you cannot trust everyone. And as I said, pertaining to the numerous calls to the ex, that could be absolutely nothing. She just was bored, been drinking, wanted to talk to him. Sometimes we call people, don't really want anything from them. Just something she's done. Something she's been used to doing. Didn't really want anything from him. But if she did, that would have been her prerogative. She was an adult. Who knows? Maybe she wanted company, was lonely. I don't know. I don't know her. They have to have cuts on her hands or somewhere. You would think a mess like that, 4 different people. That's a lot of blood. Very slippery. Yes. Wish I could come up, but I'm having technical difficulty with my audio because you could hear me, but I couldn't hear you. Yes. Toy, you were up here. I don't know what was going on. Roommate saw something, ran outside, fainted. Yes, I heard someone mention that. Well, that's 2 different versions then. Because that's not the version that some of us heard, Fran. You were either inside or outside. You literally called some friends. So what happened? You called friends and then went outside? For what reason? See, I don't understand. Roommate's actions very sketchy. Yes, with this new version of somebody going outside and somebody else use their phone to call. Now you all are coming to chat saying, well, several people call. Why would several people be calling the police? 4 people inside are dead. 2 allegedly were there during the murders. 1 or 2 found somebody passed out alongside some other friends. So how many friends were called? Who actually called 911? Can we get a definitive answer on that? Because this is ridiculous. And I don't understand how, when this story broke, what you didn't hear was, oh my goodness, there was blood everywhere. Even if you went in a room and it was dark, when you came out, you should have seen blood coming out of the room. Especially if you all said there were hardwood floors, you're going to see blood. Something's off. Something is off with the version. And as I've always told you, in true crime, that's all you are banking on is a version. what the person told the police, what the police tells the public, and what the police tells the district attorney. In the end, it is just a version. Does not mean it's the whole truth, because people will lie as to hide things they know of and have witnessed and done. Yes, I want you all to think. That is the reason why many people can't mesh with the queen, because they just want to talk. Well, you can't just talk in true crime. You have to think about what's being told to you. And you can't make it more than what they're giving you. It's not to say that something is not left out. But as I've said, everything's about a version. The version I gave, the version I want to give you. Doesn't mean it's the truth, but it's the version I'm giving. You have to decide as an outsider if you believe the version or not. Do you believe the evidence? Do you believe a good job was done in collecting the evidence? Nothing was tainted, put away, overlooked. Did you talk to everybody? All the neighbors followed up on the tips. Because they got a lot of tips, which I find very interesting. What, 500 or so? That's a lot of people. And the school is very small. What, 11,000 students? Small. So who are the people that gave the tips? That's a very good question we have not addressed. Who are the people who called to law enforcement to give tips? What kind of tips were given? Was it mainly, I saw her doing this on this night. She was looking like this, talking like this. He was in her face. He grabbed her, kissed her, held her hand, grabbed her buttocks. What are we saying? And what's the truth to the tips? Because we have a lot of messy boots that like to involve themselves in true crime and want them 5 minutes of fame as a so-called eyewitness. And those are the type of people we do not need immersed in the storyline. We want truth, truthful information only. Even if you're giving your perception, don't fabricate it and exaggerate it. But you know that it can happen. Because as I said, we have a lot of messy people want to be seen. But the one thing I find interesting, I have not heard of anyone speaking directly to the news, such as a neighbor, passerby, co-worker of any of the children, young people, excuse me. Don't you find that interesting? No neighbors. Has there been any good friends that have talked to the news? Classmates, staff members, professors, people that worked at the school? I want you to listen to me very carefully. Where are the interviews of the people that know them? I'm not talking about family, but other young people. Boyfriends, girlfriends, new acquaintances, old acquaintances. Or did they not mingle with other young people much? What's the truth? Will we get the truth? And I'm still curious to why that one ex-boyfriend had a problem with talking to the news about the girl calling him so many times. What's the big deal? You don't have anything to say to the news. Well, that makes me wonder what kind of person you are. Although they're saying the family is supporting him 100%. He didn't have anything to do with it. How do you know what he's done and not done? Just because you like somebody doesn't mean they're not a deviant. They're not diabolical. Many deviant, diabolical people, sadists, have been liked. Somebody like Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Stay Woke, Green River Killer, BTK. There's somebody on the earth that thought he, she, they were all right. Until they found out the truth, that they were hiding a dirty secret. because you don't know people. You don't know the human mind. You don't know that you're sitting beside somebody that wants you dead. I heard a guy say that. I think his name is Willie. He's a YouTuber. He was talking about the Shanquilla Robinson case. And he said, little do you know you're sleeping with somebody that wants you dead. Boy, when he said that, that cut me like a knife. Little do you know the person you're sleeping with wants you dead. That's deep. Imagine that. Sleeping at night with your lover, spouse, and they loathe you. Wish you stopped breathing in your sleep. That's why I tell people, you'd be surprised at things that people say about you behind your back. Mortified at what they've said to your face. That's why they always say if the walls could talk, oh my, the stories they could spin. Because people talk to other people about you. Now let's talk about that briefly, and I'm going to check out of here. These young people were very attractive looking young people. The blonde-headed girls were very pretty, wore makeup. So one would say they liked themselves. Just go out on a limb here. But what if we find out, and I did not want to say this on a live stream, but because I am the queen and I don't sugarcoat anything, I'm going to go ahead and say it because it needs to be said. What if indeed some of these people that lived in this house were not so nice? How about that? Hello, anybody home? What if someone decides to start chitter-chattering and tell us some not so nice things about the group of 4 or the group of 3 or 2? I don't know, Lee. What if we start hearing chitter-chatter that one of these young ladies was not so nice? Because, you know, there's always going to be something negative said about a victim, which we know you're not supposed to victim shame, but they were human beings before death. And everybody has an opinion. Sometimes won't get along with people for various reasons. But what if we find out that one of these girls has been doing something not so savory and somebody had a problem with it and they said to themselves, oh yes, I got to get her. And I'm going to take down her little friends too, because they're all so damn close. And if you look at the pictures that have been on the news, one could say they were all thick as thieves. You better stay woke now. See, Queen watches everything. That's why I don't listen to all that chitter chatter and all that gossip, because that muddies the water. And you get distracted listening to gossip. I always focus on what's been given to me. And pictures says a lot about people. All of those people that were roommates were in a picture together. Possibly many pictures. But did you ask yourself who's holding the camera? Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Who is our photographer? Maybe the Queen did miss her calling. I majored in communications in college. I think I majored in the wrong thing. Are you all listening to what the Queen is saying to you? Just like you don't know who killed these kids, if we find out that it's somebody that they know, then that means that person was walking around as a chameleon and wearing a mask in front of these kids. Because it's devastating to snuff out people for whatever reason. But it's worse when you find out it's somebody that the kids knew. So let's Look at the photographs of the kids. They're smiling. One blonde's carrying another blonde up on her shoulders. Stay woke now. Who's to say somebody was not envying these three? Look at them. They're a brat pack. Always together. Always taking pictures together. Always smiling. Kissy face and hugging one another. You'd be surprised how that would perturb a miserable bat. Why are they always together? Why are they always smiling? What do they have to smile about? I'm not smiling. I'm miserable as hell. Pretty girls, blonde hair. Look at them wearing those eyelashes long. Too pretty for their own good. See, the one thing I've tried to make you do is think like the perpetrator. That is how you'll find the perpetrator. You cannot think like a logical person. That's been said in true crime. In order to find the killer, you have to think like the killer. So you got to weigh it 1,000 different ways because you've got too many moving parts. Who would gain the most by killing these people? Maybe somebody wanted to be a part of the brat pack. Stay woke. You want me to believe these girls didn't post to TikTok and Facebook? Oh, hell yeah, I know they did. Because pretty girls do. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're confident in yourself. You like yourself. But somebody else may not like it. I had a relative once say that a few years ago. I don't know why people keep posting selfies all the time. Why? Why do they do it? I think there's something wrong with you if you post a selfie all the time. Well, that's your perception. If you're not a photogenic person, you wouldn't photograph yourself. You don't really like yourself, you're not going to photograph yourself. If you are insecure, self-conscious about your looks, you will not photograph yourself. Stay woke now. And who's to say that somebody's been looking at the brat pack and they didn't like the click? See, we don't know who our perpetrator is and the motive. And the fact that it wasn't no sexual assault could be the obvious. Somebody was jealous of 1, 2, or 3. Exactly. Roommates. To get too much attention. Pretty all the time in the pictures. See, I watched the photographs. The photographs told me more than what the police has told the queen. When I saw the blonde sitting up on the shoulders of the other blonde, I just slightly put that in the back of my head and I held on to it. I didn't dwell on it until now. Who's to say somebody was envious of the brat pack? And it's not to be disrespectful, just using it as analytical terms. Somebody didn't like the click. Somebody's jealous of the click. Want to be like the click. Want to be in the click. See, that's the thing. You don't know. What do these girls mean to anybody in the house, the remaining 2 roommates, or anybody else? Did they do something frivolous to another creature at this university or job? Did they say something out of the way to a coworker, staff member, student, and somebody exacted revenge? Did they go to a party at one time and said something nasty or out of the way, rebuff someone's advances? Was somebody jealous of the two blondes' relationship or all three relationship? I don't know. I'm just going out on a limb here. That's why I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody, because I don't know anybody, and there hasn't been really anybody mentioned to point except for the ex-boyfriend, and I'm not here to point the fingers at him because I don't know anything about him. The only problem I have with him is the fact he didn't want to speak to the news about the phone calls, which I didn't think was a very big deal because you didn't talk to her allegedly. So what's the big deal? See, the only reason why nobody wants to believe that the women or a woman, excuse me, let me clarify. A woman or women committed this crime is because of Ethan. You scratch out Ethan, some of you would have no problem with believing a woman stabbed these girls. Checkmate. So your theory goes to a man. Because one, if we're talking about breaking or climbing up to the second level to get in that balcony, you're assuming a guy did that. And a guy was killed. So somebody had to be strong enough to take Ethan down, which would be assumingly a man. But did a man do all of this? What if you find out it was really orchestrated by women and they brought a male co-conspirator? Bingo card. More than one knife was used, but same make, model. Who is our perpetrator? What is the motive for the murders of the Idaho 4? Is this revenge, jealousy, envy? Somebody owes somebody something, a favor. Somebody rebuffs somebody's advances. Random perpetrator, stalker, homeless person, transient. Somebody that's worked on the house, done work for the owner. Who owns the house? Where is he or she? Why haven't they spoken up? Does somebody else have access in the code to the house, such as landlord, family member of a landlord? So you have to stay woke. Did they give the code out to another person that was coming and going, a friend, associate? They gave it to somebody else. So you don't know because young people talk a lot. That is why they have so many problems, because they don't know when to shut up. Murder for hire, somebody says. Now, why would someone want to hire someone to murder 20-year-olds? Please elaborate before I check out of here. Did they have an OnlyFans page that they made a viewer feel that they deserve to be with them? I don't know, sweetie. Selfish, insecure person could be it has happened before. Yes. That's why I said it's so many moving parts to the story, you don't even know where to start. So the evidence is where you'd have to start. What was left behind at the scene of the crime, how the perpetrator got in, if you believe there was more weapons used. That way you know if you had more than one perpetrator. Did the perpetrator wash up? Take a shower, stay woke, carry clothes with them? Did Ethan have on clothes? Who is the perpetrator? Man, woman, women, men and women. I want to thank you for your time. God bless all of you. I will be bringing you more content this week. Please follow Everyday Shenanigans. Like, share, subscribe. Please check out my extensive video library of 1,700 plus videos. Been on the wire a few years now. Amen. I have content for all tastes. This is not a true crime network. Let me make that clear. I talk about various topics. And tomorrow I would like to deviate from true crime and bring you a hypothetical. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Mind the children. One phone call could change your life. You can remain anonymous. Happy holidays to the viewing audience. Please be safe. Do not post to social media what you have purchased or when you're traveling out of town. Post your pictures when you return. Do not put boxes at your dumpster or garbage can. Ask to let people know what you have purchased. Buy all things and put them in your trunk, not the seat or the floorboard. If you cannot be home to get your parcels from UPS, FedEx, make sure you have somebody that can pick up your packages. Know that the villain is real and she will watch you in the stores, bump you, steal your purse, pickpocket you. So do not leave the store without your keys already ready. Do not fumble for keys in the parking lot or at your car. Do not go to anyone else's car or van to buy hot used merchandise as not to become a victim of foul play. Thank you for your time. God bless all of you. Have a happy, happy week. And if you don't celebrate the holidays, be safe. Blessings to all of you in the viewing audience. And thank you for my 1,000 plus subscribers. Thank you, new subs and viewers. I don't know, Toy. And that's the scary part of this story. They have mentioned 2 other crimes in neighboring states that were never solved. They had not had a crime there in 5 to 7 years. We have to pray that they get it right, because it will be disturbing if they do not get a perpetrator in the next couple of weeks. Because that means the perpetrator is free to kill again. And no way you could think he or she or they would not kill again. 4 people under the belt, it's open season now. Sexual assault or not, you still snuffed out 4 people for whatever reason. This person has to be brought to justice. And anybody aiding him or her, they need to go down as well. And that is something to think about too, Miss Lee. I won't doubt that the perpetrator will be at the vigil. So there will probably be decoys at the vigil. Glad you mentioned that. Perpetrator 1, perpetrator 2. How many perpetrators are we talking about? All men, all women, men and women. But that is going to be very scary. It's that the perpetrators, if more than one, will be at this candlelight vigil. Very, very scary. But anybody listening to this live stream in Idaho, please be very careful of the company you are keeping and any secrets that you are holding, because you just may be sleeping, slumbering with the killers. And if you hear any type of subversive talk about the victims, run like hell and call the authorities, because that is going to be the first thing the perpetrator is going to do. He is going to downplay the murders in conversation. That is where he's going to slip up. And he is going to start to talk about it excessively. And he's going to do a Ted Bundy number. If it was me, I'd do this, this, and this. Beware. Thank you for your time. God bless all of you. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Well, 3 or more, I do believe he would classify or she as a serial killer. Thank you all so much for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans.